The moment Zane Lockhart ducked through the weathered door of the Hideaway Café, the tension that had been riding his shoulders all day began to dissolve. Rain dripped from his baseball cap and designer jacket, both chosen for their ability to mask his identity rather than their style. He glanced over his shoulder, relieved to see no cameras flashing, no reporters shouting questions. For the first time in days, he could breathe. Rough day. A warm voice pulled his attention to the counter where a young woman stood, wiping a mug with a checkered cloth. Zane managed a weary smile. You could say that. The cafe was exactly what he needed: small, unassuming, tucked away on a forgotten side street that his driver had suggested when Zane had desperately asked for somewhere, anywhere he could escape to. The place smelled of freshly ground coffee beans and something sweet baking in the oven, a far cry from the sterile boardrooms and exclusive restaurants that had become his natural habitat. What can I get you? The woman behind the counter had a name tag that read Emma. Her curly brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her green apron was dusted with flour. Just black coffee, the strongest you've got. Zane slid onto a stool at the counter, his back to the door, still half expecting the bell above it to signal the arrival of photographers who somehow always managed to track him down, coming right up. Emma grabbed a ceramic mug and filled it from a carafe. You picked a good time to come in. It's usually dead this time of day, especially in weather like this. Zane nodded, grateful for the quiet. The cafe had only two other patrons: an elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner and a college student with headphones, typing furiously on a laptop. Emma slid the coffee across to him. I'm Emma, by the way, Emma Porter. Zane, he replied, deliberately leaving off his last name. He'd learned that omission was often less suspicious than an outright lie. He took a sip of the coffee and nearly groaned with pleasure. It was perfect, rich, and complex without any bitterness. This is incredible, he said, surprised. He'd become accustomed to overpriced, mediocre coffee served in trendy establishments where people went to be seen rather than to enjoy their beverage. Emma beamed. Thanks, I roast the beans myself. My grandpa taught me. Something about her straightforward pride touched Zane. In his world, everyone was trying to impress someone, always with an angle, always with a hidden agenda. Do you own this place? He asked, genuinely curious, sort of. It's been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather started it, then my mom ran it until she got sick 2 years ago. A shadow crossed Emma's face. Now it's just me. I'm sorry about your mom, Zane said softly. Thanks. Emma shrugged, a practiced movement that didn't quite hide her grief. The cafe keeps her memory alive. And it keeps me busy, which helps. The bell above the door jingled, and Zane tensed instinctively, but it was only a middle-aged woman escaping the rain. Emma greeted her by name and went to take her order, leaving Zane with his thoughts and his excellent coffee. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through the dozens of missed calls and texts from his executive assistant, his PR team, and his lawyers. The merger was falling apart, the stock price was dropping, and the vultures were circling. And on top of all that, his ex-girlfriend had gone to the tabloids with stories about their relationship that were just true enough to be damaging but distorted enough to be infuriating. Refill. Emma was back, coffee pot in hand. Zane nodded gratefully. Please. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world on those shoulders, Emma commented as she poured. Just work, Zane said automatically. Must be some job. He hesitated. It's complicated. Emma raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, corporate lawyer? No, wait, investment banker. Despite himself, Zane smiled. Close enough. Well, whatever it is, it looks like it's giving you an ulcer. Emma leaned against the counter. You know what helps? Our homemade apple pie just came out of the oven. Are you always this persistent with your customers? Only the ones who look like they haven't smiled in years, Emma shot back, but her eyes were kind. So pie, I'll even throw in some vanilla ice cream. It'll change your life. Zane couldn't remember the last time someone had treated him so, normally, without deference, without an agenda. It was refreshing. All right, you've convinced me. When Emma returned with a generous slice of pie topped with a scoop of ice cream, Zane took his first bite and had to admit she was right, it was life-changing. Warm cinnamon apples, flaky crust, cold ice cream melting into all the crevices. "This is incredible," he said after swallowing. "Did you make this too?" Emma nodded, a hint of color touching her cheeks. "My mom's recipe. The secret is a splash of bourbon in the filling." Zane took another bite. "Well, it's perfect." They fell into easy conversation. Emma told him about the neighborhood, about the regulars who came into the cafe, about her dreams of expanding the menu. Zane found himself talking too careful to avoid specifics that might reveal his identity, but still more open than he'd been with anyone in a long time. He told her about growing up with parents who were rarely home, about the pressure of expectations, about how sometimes success felt emptier than he'd anticipated. "Sorry," he said after a while. "I didn't mean to dump all of that on you." Emma waved his apology away. "That's what bartenders and baristas are for, right? We're basically unlicensed therapists." The afternoon slipped by, and when Zane finally looked at his watch, he was shocked to discover 3 hours had passed. "I should get going," he said reluctantly. "Well, the door's always open if you need another escape," Emma said with a smile that made something warm unfurl in Zane's chest. He left a $100 bill on the counter, far more than his bill would have been. "This is too much," Emma protested when she saw it. "Consider it a token of appreciation for the best afternoon I've had in months," Zane replied. "I'll be back." And he was. The next day, dodging reporters outside his office building, Zane instructed his driver to take him back to the Hideaway Café. This time, he brought his laptop, intending to get some work done. Emma greeted him with a warm smile that made his pulse quicken. "You came back." "I told you I would," Zane said, settling at a corner table. "That pie was too good to stay away." Over the next 2 weeks, the Hideaway Café became Zane's sanctuary. He'd slip in, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for an entire afternoon, working remotely while Emma bustled around the café. They fell into an easy rhythm, exchanging quips and stories between customers. What Zane didn't tell Emma was that his company, Lockhart Enterprises, was in the midst of its biggest crisis since he'd taken over as CEO 6 years ago. The failed merger, coupled with whispers about mismanagement, had sent the stock plummeting. The board was questioning his leadership. The press was having a field day, but at the Hideaway, none of that existed. He was just Zane, a regular guy with a demanding job, enjoying good coffee and even better company, until the day his two worlds collided. Zane was sitting at his usual corner table, on a video call with his executive team, when the bell above the door jangled, and in walked Terrence, Wells, the most ruthless business reporter in New York City. Zane immediately angled his laptop screen away and pulled his cap lower, ending the call abruptly. Terrence ordered a coffee and scanned the cafe casually, his gaze sliding past Zane without recognition. But Zane knew it was only a matter of time. He gathered his things quickly, nodding a hasty goodbye to a confused-looking Emma, and slipped out the back door that she'd shown him on his 3rd visit. "Just in case you ever need to avoid an ex-girlfriend or something." He'd been gone less than 5 minutes when his phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Is this why you've been MIA, hiding in coffee shops with pretty baristas?" Attached was a grainy photo of Zane and Emma laughing together at the counter, taken through the cafe window. Zane's stomach dropped. He called his head of security immediately. "Wells found me. I need to know how." An hour later, Zane had his answer. One of his board members, angling to push him out, had hired a private investigator to track his movements. The PI had followed Zane's car to the cafe and tipped off Terrence. The next morning, the story broke. Lockhart Enterprises in freefall while Billionaire CEO hides out with mystery woman. The article speculated wildly about who Emma was, suggesting everything from a secret girlfriend to a therapist helping Zane through a nervous breakdown. The photos were unflattering, taken with a long-range lens. One showed Emma touching Zane's hand across the counter, the gesture innocent but made to look intimate by the angle. Zane tried to call the cafe, but the line was constantly busy. He considered going there in person, but knew that would only make things worse. The paparazzi would follow him, turning Emma's quiet business into a circus. Instead, he did what he always did in a crisis: he went on the offensive. He called a press conference, announced a bold new direction for the company, and fielded questions about the merger's collapse with confident answers that reassured investors. The stock began to climb again, but he couldn't stop thinking about Emma, about the hurt and confusion she must be feeling. About how he'd dragged her into his chaotic world without warning. 3 days after the article broke, Zane was working late in his penthouse office when his assistant buzzed him. "Sir, there's an Emma Porter here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite persistent." Zane's heart raced. "Send her up." When Emma walked in, her expression was unreadable. She'd clearly dressed up for the occasion in a simple blue dress that made her eyes look even more vivid than he remembered. "So," she said, dropping a tabloid magazine on his desk. The cover featured their photo with the headline "Lockhart's Secret Love Nest." "You're not just Zane who works in finance. You're Zane Lockhart, the billionaire CEO." Zane winced. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "After the reporters started camping outside my cafe. After they went through my trash. After they interviewed my ex-boyfriends." Emma's voice rose with each question. "Do you have any idea what the last 3 days have been like for me?" "I'm sorry," Zane said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. "I never meant for any of this to happen." The cafe was the one place where I could just be normal, where I wasn't being judged or analyzed or photographed. "So you used my cafe as your hiding place and me as your vacation from reality?" "No," Zane stood up, coming around his desk. "Emma, it wasn't like that. Being with you, talking with you, it was the most real thing in my life." She crossed her arms, but her expression softened slightly. "Why didn't you just tell me who you were?" "Because you treated me like a person, not a portfolio." Zane ran a hand through his hair. "Do you know how rare that is? Everyone wants something from me, everyone has an angle, but you just wanted to make sure I tried the pie." A reluctant smile tugged at Emma's lips. "It is really good pie." "The best," Zane agreed, taking a cautious step closer. "How bad is it at the cafe?" Emma sighed. "It's a circus. Reporters, photographers, even some of your fangirls with signs. I've had to close for the past 2 days." Guilt twisted in Zane's stomach. "I'll fix it, whatever it takes." "How? You can't exactly make them go away." "No, but I can give them a better story." An idea was forming in Zane's mind. "Come to dinner with me. A real dinner out in public. We'll give them their photo op, I'll answer some questions, and then they'll move on to the next scandal." Emma looked skeptical. "And what about your company, your reputation? Isn't being seen with the barista going to cause problems for you?" "I don't care," Zane said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "The only thing I care about is making this right with you, and maybe seeing where this could go if you're interested." Emma studied him for a long moment. "One dinner, and then we'll see." One dinner turned into 2, then 3. With each date, the media attention grew less frenzied, becoming background noise rather than a blaring siren. Emma reopened the cafe, and though it was busier than before now, attracting curious customers who'd read about it in the tabloids, things slowly returned to a new kind of normal. Zane insisted on hiring security for Emma and the cafe, a condition she reluctantly accepted after a particularly aggressive photographer had shoved past her elderly customer to get a shot of her serving coffee. "I'm not used to living like this," Emma admitted one evening as they walked through Central Park, Zane's security team following at a discreet distance. "All these eyes watching, judging." "I know," Zane said, squeezing her hand, "and I'm sorry you have to deal with it. But I'm not sorry about anything else. Meeting you, it changed everything for me." It was true. Since Emma had come into his life, Zane had found a new balance. He still worked hard, still led his company with passion, but he no longer let it consume him. He made time for things that mattered: quiet mornings at the cafe, weekend adventures exploring the city, long conversations about everything and nothing. And Emma flourished too. With Zane's encouragement and financial backing, she expanded the Hideaway Café, adding evening hours, a small wine list, and a more extensive menu while maintaining the cozy atmosphere that made it special. 6 months after their first meeting, Zane took Emma to Paris for a weekend getaway. They strolled along the Seine, ate croissants at tiny cafes, and kissed under the Eiffel Tower like the tourists they were on their last night over dinner at a small restaurant far from the usual celebrity haunts. Zane reached across the table and took Emma's hand. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice unusually nervous. Emma raised an eyebrow. "That's always dangerous." Zane laughed, some of his tension easing. "I've been thinking about us, about how we met and everything that's happened since." "It's been quite a ride," Emma agreed. "When I walked into your cafe that rainy afternoon, I was running away. From the press, from my responsibilities, from the mess my life had become." Zane's thumb traced circles on the back of Emma's hand. "But what I found was so much more than a hiding place. I found you." Emma's eyes softened. "Zane, let me finish or I'll lose my nerve." He took a deep breath. "You showed me what was missing from my life, not success or money or power. I had all of that. What I was missing was someone who could see past all that, someone who could make me laugh when everything was falling apart, someone who could remind me what really matters." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Emma Porter, I love you. I love your strength and your kindness and your incredible pie. Will you marry me?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as Zane opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. "You know this will be all over the tabloids by tomorrow, right?" "Let them talk," Zane said. "The only headline I care about is whether you'll say yes." "Yes," Emma whispered, her smile brighter than all the lights of Paris. "Of course it's yes." They were married the following spring in a ceremony that combined Zane's wealth and Emma's warmth. The grand ballroom of a historic hotel was transformed into an indoor garden, with cherry blossoms and fairy lights creating an intimate atmosphere despite the 300 guests. Emma's dress was simple but elegant, designed by a friend from her old neighborhood who had always dreamed of being a fashion designer and who, thanks to Emma's introduction to Zane, now had the funding to launch her own line. The reception featured a dessert table filled with pies from the Hideaway Café, including the apple pie that had first broken through Zane's walls. The couple's first dance was to a song about finding love in unexpected places, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house when Zane dipped Emma low and kissed her to the sound of thunderous applause. The press covered the wedding extensively, of course, but the story had evolved. No longer was it about the billionaire and the barista now, it was about two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built something real in a world of artifice. After a 3-week honeymoon touring small cafes and bakeries throughout Europe research, Emma insisted. For the Hideaway's continuing evolution, the couple returned to New York and the work of building their life together. A year into their marriage, Emma discovered she was pregnant. Zane was overjoyed, immediately converting a room in their penthouse into a nursery and reading every parenting book he could find. Emma continued to oversee the Hideaway, now a small chain with 3 locations across the city, each maintaining the personal touch and quality that had made the original special. When their daughter, Olivia, was born, Zane held her with trembling hands, overcome by a love so intense it felt like his chest might burst. "She has your eyes," he whispered to Emma, who was exhausted but radiant. "And your stubbornness," Emma replied, watching as the baby gripped Zane's finger with surprising strength. "She's perfect." Parenthood brought new challenges and joys. Zane, determined to be more present than his own father had been, adjusted his work schedule to ensure he was home for bedtime stories and weekend outings to the park. Emma balanced motherhood with her growing business, sometimes bringing Olivia to the cafes where she quickly became everyone's favorite little helper, solemnly handing out napkins to customers from her perch in a high chair. The paparazzi remained a presence in their lives, but a more respectful one, especially after Zane and Emma won a lawsuit against a photographer who had used a drone to take pictures of Olivia in their private garden. The settlement included strict guidelines about when and how the family could be photographed, creating a template that other celebrities would later adopt. As Olivia grew from a baby to a toddler to a precocious preschooler, Zane and Emma's love deepened and evolved. They faced challenges together: a health scare for Emma's grandfather, a hostile takeover attempt at Lockhart Enterprises, the delicate balance of raising a child in the spotlight while keeping her grounded, and came through each one stronger. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Zane surprised Emma by taking her back to the original Hideaway Café after hours. He had decorated it just as it had been the day they met, right down to the rain streaking the windows, courtesy of a discreet sprinkler system. "What is all this?" Emma asked, looking around in wonder. "I wanted to take you back to where it all began," Zane said, leading her to the counter where they'd first talked. "5 years ago, I walked in here thinking I was just escaping the paparazzi. I had no idea I was walking toward the rest of my life." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You're such a romantic. Only for you." Zane kissed her softly. "I have another surprise." He guided her to a table where a document sat. Emma picked it up, her brow furrowing as she read. "The Emma Porter Foundation for Culinary Education. I've endowed it with $50 million, Zane explained. "It will provide scholarships, mentoring, and startup funding for aspiring chefs and restaurant owners from underprivileged backgrounds. The first campus will open next year, right here in New York." Emma was speechless, her hand over her mouth. "You always talk about how lucky you were to have your grandfather teach you everything he knew," Zane continued. "Not everyone has that. This foundation will help bridge that gap, giving talented people the chance to follow their passion, just like you did." "Zane, I don't know what to say." Emma's voice wavered with emotion. "Say you'll be the chairwoman. Say you'll help shape it into something that would make your mom proud." "Yes," Emma whispered, pulling him into a tight embrace. "Yes to all of it." Later that night, as they lay tangled together in their bed, Emma traced the lines of Zane's face with gentle fingers. "Did you ever imagine that day, the day you came into the cafe, that this is where we'd end up?" Zane captured her hand and kissed her palm. "Not in my wildest dreams, but now I can't imagine any other path." "Me neither," Emma said, resting her head on his chest. "Who would have thought that a billionaire hiding from the paparazzi and a cafe owner just trying to keep her family business alive would find all this?" "I think that's the best kind of love story," Zane murmured, holding her close. "The kind you never see coming." Outside their window, the city lights twinkled like stars, a reminder of the vast, chaotic world they navigated together. But inside, in the warmth of their embrace, there was only the steady rhythm of two hearts that had found their perfect match in the most unexpected of places. And as they drifted off to sleep, both knew with absolute certainty that while fame and fortune had brought Zane to Emma's cafe that rainy afternoon, it was something far more valuable, something no amount of money could buy, that had kept him coming back. It was love, simple and profound, that had transformed a hiding place into a home, and two separate lives into one beautiful, shared journey.